Ethan Montgomery gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, taking in the sprawling cityscape of New York below. The world seemed endlessly alive, full of purpose and excitement, but he felt removed from it all. At 35, he had built an empire, accumulated wealth beyond imagination, and secured a place among the city's elite. But the familiar sense of accomplishment no longer brought him peace. Since his mother's passing, Ethan felt a growing void, a loneliness he couldn't shake, one that not even his wealth could ease. He sighed, looking down at the desk in front of him. A framed photograph rested there, capturing a cherished memory of him and his mother, Susan Montgomery, at one of her annual charity events. She had always been the compassionate force in his life, grounding him with her unwavering belief in kindness and generosity. While he'd inherited her ambition, he often struggled with the true values she tried to impart. She used to say, "Money can do a lot, but it can't bring you love, Ethan. Real love sees who you are, not what you have." Her words echoed in his mind now, reminding him of what was missing. After her passing, he found himself trapped in a world filled with superficiality. Every date, every relationship felt the same. People saw him as a stepping stone, a wealthy man whose fortune might elevate their own lives. He could sense their real motives, the unspoken but visible hunger for luxury, status, and the convenience his wealth could provide. They never looked beyond the designer suits, the expensive car, or his extravagant home. He craved something genuine, a connection built on something deeper than money. Ethan picked up the photo frame, studying his mother's kind smile, her eyes full of warmth and hope. She'd loved working with charities, hosting events to help those in need, reminding him often that the real treasure in life was the impact one could have on others. And now, as he looked at her picture, an idea began to form, a way he might, in some small way, honor her memory while finding the one thing he lacked, real, honest love. What if I could step out of this life, just for a while, he thought. What if I could see people as they truly are, without the weight of my name and wealth? A thrill of inspiration sparked within him. He would create a charity event in his mother's honor, a beauty pageant with a twist. The winner would receive a significant donation for a cause of her choice, but for Ethan, the competition would serve a hidden purpose. He would attend the event in disguise, allowing him to observe the contestants without revealing who he was. For a brief moment, he imagined himself among them, not as Ethan Montgomery the millionaire, but as someone entirely ordinary, someone who could experience people's kindness, compassion, and character without the filter of wealth. He felt his mother's presence encouraging him, as though she were there, whispering, "Trust your heart, Ethan. Seek kindness, and kindness will find you." He set the photograph back on the desk, a smile playing on his lips. The plan felt right. It felt bold, uncharacteristic even, but his intuition told him it was worth it. The very thought filled him with renewed purpose. He would slip into the shadows of his own life, stepping into a world unknown, and perhaps, find something true. Ethan moved swiftly to bring his plan to life, organizing the beauty pageant under the pretense of a charitable event. His team was used to managing high-profile projects, but Ethan took on much of the planning himself. He told his assistant, Marcus, that this pageant would be a personal project dedicated to his mother's memory. Though Marcus found Ethan's sudden interest in charity pageants unusual, he respected his boss's vision. The competition would be grand, held in a rented ballroom at a prestigious hotel in the city. Invitations went out widely, open to women from all backgrounds. The winner would receive a substantial prize for a charity or personal cause, a detail Ethan hoped would attract those motivated by more than the allure of fame. His intent was clear. He wanted to see the true nature of each contestant, beyond beauty, through their interactions, compassion, and character. The night before the event, Ethan prepared his disguise with meticulous care. He spent hours selecting worn, oversized clothes from a second-hand store, discarding his usual tailored suits for a look that made him almost unrecognizable. His hair was tousled and left without its usual polish, and he rubbed his hands with dirt to appear as though he'd spent days outside. Finally, he put on a worn beanie and scarf, covering much of his face to mask his identity. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he barely recognized the man staring back. Instead of Ethan Montgomery, the powerful CEO, he saw a simple, unassuming figure, a stranger, perhaps even someone lost. He took a steadying breath, ready to embrace the role fully. For the first time in years, he felt nervous. Walking into a room as someone with no influence, no power, felt strange, but it was essential to his plan. The following morning, Ethan arrived early at the ballroom, blending in with the event staff and volunteers. The grand hall was alive with activity, filled with lights, decorations, and bustling contestants preparing for the competition. Some were rehearsing their talents, while others adjusted makeup or practiced their smiles in the mirror. Ethan noticed the varied faces and expressions. Each contestant brought her own unique energy and personality to the event. As he moved through the room, trying to appear invisible, he kept an eye out for anyone who exuded warmth and authenticity. The contestants interacted with each other, some displaying excitement, others anxiety, and a few a competitive edge that bordered on dismissive. But amid the crowd, one woman caught his attention almost immediately. Lily Brown entered with quiet confidence, her natural curls framing her face and her warm expression welcoming everyone around her. Unlike many of the others, she didn't seem preoccupied with herself or focused solely on the competition. She offered a genuine smile to the event staff and even helped a frazzled crew member adjust a piece of staging equipment. She seemed calm, kind, and entirely focused on helping others rather than making an impression. Ethan felt a pull toward her, something he hadn't experienced in a long time. She was grounded, her beauty radiating from a kindness that wasn't forced. He wanted to know more about her, but he knew he had to tread carefully to keep his disguise intact. Still, observing her small acts of compassion made him hopeful that his experiment might yield exactly what he was searching for. As the contestants continued to settle in, Ethan melted back into the shadows, blending into his role as an unnoticed figure in the room. This was his opportunity to see people as they truly were, beyond the allure of wealth and reputation. He silently promised himself that he would stay true to his purpose. In the face of their smiles, their practiced poise, and their rehearsed charm, he would look for something deeper. The pageant was in full swing by mid-morning, with contestants scattered throughout the hotel ballroom. Some practiced speeches, while others huddled in groups, touching up makeup or adjusting their outfits. A lively, competitive energy filled the air, blending excitement with just a hint of nervousness. As Ethan moved quietly through the crowd, he observed the varied personalities around him. Some contestants seemed focused entirely on impressing the judges, clearly aiming to win the prize at any cost. They struck exaggerated poses, laughed a little too loudly, and occasionally cast subtle, evaluative glances at their competition. Yet, amid this sea of ambition, Lily Brown stood out with an unassuming grace that intrigued him deeply. Lily had a captivating presence, but it wasn't the kind of beauty that demanded attention. Instead, she exuded a quiet strength, grounded in warmth and humility. She was African American, with expressive brown eyes and natural curls framing her face. Her outfit was simple, understated, and suited her calm nature. She hadn't come here to impress anyone, rather, it seemed she'd come with a purpose beyond herself. Ethan watched as she moved gracefully through the room, pausing to offer help wherever she saw someone in need. She chatted with a young contestant who appeared overwhelmed, offering reassuring words and a gentle hand on her shoulder. Ethan could see the woman visibly relax, comforted by Lily's kindness. Curious, Ethan made his way closer, taking care not to draw attention to himself. It was crucial to maintain his cover, so he kept his posture slouched, his face mostly hidden by the beanie and scarf. Still, he wanted to learn more about this woman who seemed so different from the rest. "Excuse me, miss," he said quietly, attempting to mimic a rough, unpolished tone that suited his disguise. "I just wanted to say thank you for being so kind. I've been watching, I noticed how you treated that girl back there. Not many people would go out of their way like that." Lily turned, surprised to see him standing there. Her expression softened, a gentle smile lighting up her face as she responded. "Oh, thank you," she said, her voice genuine. "I think we all need kindness in our lives, don't we? Especially in a place like this. It's easy to get lost in the competition." Ethan nodded, caught off guard by her sincerity. "Yeah, it sure is," he murmured, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and admiration. Here was a woman who didn't know who he was, didn't care about his wealth, and treated him with a simple human decency he hadn't experienced in a long time. It was refreshing, even exhilarating, to be seen as just a man, not a millionaire. Lily continued her preparations, but from that moment on, Ethan kept her in his sight, observing quietly. Every interaction she had with others seemed to reveal more about her true character. She was patient, compassionate, and unpretentious, qualities that seemed almost foreign in the competitive, high-stakes world Ethan was used to. As the contestants took turns on stage for the preliminary rounds, Ethan watched Lily closely. She walked with quiet confidence, spoke with purpose, and shared a glimpse of her life that touched everyone in the room. She explained that she had entered the competition to win funds for her father's medical treatment, revealing a personal struggle that brought a hush over the audience. Ethan felt his heart stir as she spoke, his admiration growing with each word. Unlike many of the other contestants, she wasn't here for fame or recognition. She was driven by love and a desire to help her family, a dedication Ethan could hardly ignore. In her, he saw the reflection of the values his mother had always spoken of, values he hadn't encountered in anyone since her passing. For the rest of the day, Ethan lingered near the stage, captivated by Lily's authenticity. His heart, guarded for so long, felt strangely vulnerable around her, as if seeing her genuine spirit had opened something within him. He felt more certain than ever that this experiment was the right choice. Yet, with each interaction, a lingering fear crept into his thoughts. He knew that he was hiding a truth from her, a truth that, once revealed, could shatter everything he was beginning to feel. The stakes of the charade were higher than he had anticipated. For the first time, he realized that there was something truly precious he stood to lose if things went wrong. But for now, he set those concerns aside, choosing instead to focus on the journey in front of him. As the contestants wrapped up their performances and mingled with each other, he resolved to stay close, learning all he could from the woman who had touched his heart. In the days that followed, Ethan found himself drawn more and more to Lily. She lingered near the refreshments during breaks, taking quiet moments for herself, and these became his opportunities to strike up casual conversations. Each exchange revealed more about her, layers of resilience, hope, and sacrifice that touched him deeply. One afternoon, as they stood by the refreshment table, Ethan, still in his disguise, initiated a conversation that went beyond the typical small talk. He felt an impulse to know what had brought her to this competition, not just her motivation, but the story behind it. "So," he said, in a low, casual tone, "I couldn't help but notice you seem different from the others here. If you don't mind me asking, what made you want to join this whole thing?" Lily turned to him, surprised at the question. For a moment, she hesitated, but then a soft smile formed on her lips. "I suppose you could say I'm here for my dad," she said, her gaze growing distant. "He's not well. Medical bills add up fast, and I've been struggling to make ends meet. When I heard about the prize money and that it could be donated to any cause, I thought, why not? It could be a chance to help him, even if it's a long shot." Ethan's heart tightened as he listened, struck by the gravity of her situation. Here she was, shouldering the weight of a loved one's illness, choosing to compete in a beauty pageant, a place where her genuine spirit and understated beauty seemed almost out of place, simply to provide for her father. She wasn't here for the spotlight or the thrill, she was here out of necessity, out of love. "That's really selfless," he murmured, careful to keep his voice steady. "You must care about him a lot." Lily nodded, a tender look in her eyes. "He's all I have," she said quietly. "He raised me on his own, worked so hard to give me a good life. Now it's my turn to take care of him. I'd do anything for him." Ethan swallowed hard, trying to contain the surge of emotion her words evoked. Her story reminded him of his mother's strength, the sacrifices she had made to instill values in him beyond material wealth. In Lily, he saw echoes of that same devotion, a rare, genuine love that wasn't tied to what the world could offer. "What about you?" she asked, turning the question on him with a curious smile. "I mean, I know it's probably a weird question," You seem different, too. What brings you here? Caught off guard, Ethan hesitated. He hadn't expected her to take an interest in his own story, especially since he was supposed to be a nameless face in the crowd. Still, he didn't want to lie to her, not entirely. Oh, just drifting through, he said, choosing his words carefully. Guess I'm looking for something real, too. A place to belong, maybe. People can be hard to understand sometimes. Lily seemed to understand without needing an explanation. She nodded thoughtfully, as if his words made perfect sense to her. Yeah, they can be, she agreed. But I think there are good people out there, even if they're hard to find. Kindness is still around, you just have to look for it. The simplicity of her response moved Ethan more than he cared to admit. She didn't question him further or pry into his background. Instead, she offered a warm smile and a gentle acceptance that made him feel seen, even behind his disguise. Their conversation was interrupted as the announcement called the contestants back to the stage for the next round. As Lily excused herself and returned to her preparations, Ethan remained by the refreshment table, his heart both heavy and hopeful. The more he spoke to her, the harder it became to keep his secret. The bond between them was growing, rooted in shared values and mutual respect, but he knew that he was building this connection on a foundation of hidden truths. Still, he couldn't pull away. He wanted to know her more, to understand her deeper, even if it meant risking his own heart. For now, he chose to stay close, his hope tethered to the belief that maybe, just maybe, he could be the kind of man she needed, not a millionaire, not a title, but a friend and companion who saw her for the remarkable person she truly was. As the competition progressed, Ethan felt the need to see how the contestants would react to a test of character. He had been watching and observing, noting how Lily's kindness seemed unwavering. Yet, part of him needed to know for sure if her compassion extended beyond what he had seen. Would she truly help someone in need, even if she thought no one was watching? It was during a break between rounds that he put his plan into action. Taking a seat by the entrance, he slouched in his worn clothes, trying to blend in with the shadows. He put on an expression of weariness, clutching his stomach to mimic hunger. One by one, he called out softly to the contestants as they walked past him, asking if they could spare a bit of food. The responses varied. A few glanced his way, but quickly looked down, pretending not to notice him. Others ignored him entirely, their eyes focused ahead, clearly uncomfortable with the presence of someone they perceived as homeless. Ethan wasn't surprised. It was a natural reaction, one he had come to expect over the years from people unaccustomed to hardship. Most saw his disguise and simply assumed he was someone who didn't fit into their world. Just as he was beginning to think no one would stop, he felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Looking up, he found himself staring into Lily's kind eyes, her expression filled with concern. "Hey," she said softly, kneeling down to meet his gaze. "Are you all right?" Her voice was sincere, free of judgment or pity. Ethan, taken aback by her compassion, struggled to maintain his role. I just haven't eaten much today," he mumbled, trying to keep his voice rough and unsure. "Didn't want to bother no one, but I thought maybe someone might have something not." Without hesitation, Lily opened her small bag and pulled out half of her sandwich, still wrapped in a napkin. She handed it to him, along with a bottle of water. "Here, take this," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "You need it more than I do." Ethan stared at the food in his hands, a mix of emotions swirling within him. He had set this up as a test, but her kindness touched him in a way he hadn't anticipated. She wasn't merely fulfilling an obligation or trying to impress anyone. Her actions came from a place of genuine care, a compassion that went beyond appearances or judgments. "Thank you," he managed to say, looking down to hide the emotion welling up in his eyes. "Not many people would stop like you did." Lily shrugged, as if the gesture were no big deal. "It's just food," she replied with a small smile. "We all go through hard times. If I can help, even a little, then why wouldn't I?" Her words resonated deeply with him. Here was a woman who didn't see him as a burden or a problem to avoid. She saw him as a person, worthy of kindness simply because he existed. It was a rare, selfless beauty, one that struck Ethan more than any superficial charm ever had. As she stood up to leave, Ethan felt an urge to express his gratitude in a way that went beyond words. But he knew that revealing himself now would only complicate things. Instead, he tucked the sandwich away, saving it as a reminder of this moment, a moment that confirmed everything he had hoped to find. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Ethan returned to his quiet observation, his thoughts constantly drifting back to Lily. Her actions had spoken volumes, revealing a kindness that went beyond what he had imagined. She was, he realized, exactly the kind of person he had been searching for, someone who saw beauty in acts of compassion and who valued people for who they were, not for what they could offer. As evening fell and the competition wound down, Ethan made his way to a quiet corner, feeling the weight of his secret pressing down on him. He had set out on this journey to find authenticity, to strip away the layers of wealth and status that had always defined him. And now that he had, he found himself yearning to reveal the truth to her, to let her see the man behind the disguise. But he knew he couldn't, not yet. Not without risking everything they had built in these quiet, unguarded moments. For now, he would hold on to this experience, cherishing the connection they shared, even if it was based on a lie. Yet deep down, he knew that the day of reckoning was coming. Sooner or later, he would have to reveal himself. And when he did, he could only hope that Lily's kindness extended to forgiveness. Ethan found himself looking forward to every interaction with Lily, his admiration for her growing with each passing day. Between rounds, they would share short, meaningful conversations over cups of coffee or during quiet moments in the backstage area. Their talks had become a comforting ritual, a brief escape from the competitive tension around them. As they continued to grow closer, Ethan felt his emotions becoming tangled in a way he hadn't anticipated. What had begun as an observation, a quest to find a kind-hearted woman, was turning into something real. He wasn't just admiring Lily from afar, he was beginning to care deeply for her. Her compassion, her strength, and her warmth were drawing him in, making it harder and harder to maintain the boundaries he had set for himself. One afternoon, as they waited for the next round to begin, Lily glanced over at him, her expression curious. "You know," she began, a thoughtful look in her eyes, "I've been meaning to ask, why do you seem so out of place here?" Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Lily's intuition was sharp, but he hadn't expected her to confront him so directly. He scrambled for an answer, careful to keep his tone light and dismissive. "Guess I'm not really cut out for all this glitz and glamour," he replied, forcing a chuckle. "I'm just here to see if I can find some good in people." Lily tilted her head, studying him for a moment. "Well, you seem genuine," she said quietly. "In a place like this, that's rare. I'm glad we met." Her words hit him with a bittersweet pang. He wanted to be honest with her, to tell her who he truly was, but he feared what would happen if she discovered the truth. For now, all he could do was accept her friendship, even as he wrestled with the secret he kept hidden. As the next round of the competition began, Ethan noticed that the atmosphere had shifted. The remaining contestants seemed tense, their focus sharper and their interactions guarded. Some of them were visibly determined to win, adopting a competitive edge that bordered on hostility. Ethan observed the change, noting the way contestants measured each other up, forming cliques and casting judgmental glances. But Lily remained her calm, grounded self, moving through the group with her usual grace and kindness. She didn't let the competition shake her, her goal had always been about something bigger than the prize itself. It was a quality Ethan admired deeply, but it also made him painfully aware of how much he had to lose if things went wrong. Every day brought him closer to the inevitable, the moment when he would have to reveal his true identity. He felt trapped between the person he wanted to be with Lily and the role he had played to get close to her. And as his feelings for her deepened, so did the weight of the truth he was hiding. For now, he held on to the hope that, somehow, their connection could survive the revelation that loomed on the horizon. Until then, he would cherish every moment they shared, even if they were based on a fragile lie. The final day of the competition arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The contestants, judges, and audience members filled the grand ballroom with an eager buzz. Ethan's heart beat in sync with the rising anticipation around him. His connection with Lily had grown stronger over the past few days, and his feelings for her had deepened beyond what he had ever expected. But now, the weight of his deception loomed larger than ever. He could feel the edges of his secret fraying, and he knew it was only a matter of time before everything unraveled. As he watched Lily take her place on the stage, preparing for her final performance, he felt a bittersweet pang. She stood there, her poise natural, her presence calm and confident. In her eyes, he saw the same determination and hope she'd carried with her throughout the competition. She was here for her father, for the chance to make a difference in his life, and Ethan couldn't help but feel both admiration and guilt. He had seen the purity of her heart, the strength of her convictions, and he was about to shatter it all with a truth he could no longer keep hidden. The final round came to an end, and the contestants gathered, each awaiting the results. The judges took the stage, announcing the winner with a celebratory fanfare. When Lily's name echoed through the room, applause erupted, and Ethan's heart soared with pride and dread. She had earned it, not just for her beauty but for her kindness, resilience, and the authenticity she'd brought to every moment of the competition. Lily stepped forward to accept her prize, her expression a mix of joy and disbelief. She glanced at Ethan in the crowd, her smile warm, her eyes seeking his approval. He knew she saw him as an ally, as someone who had shared in her journey, and that realization made the truth even harder to bear. As the applause died down, Ethan stepped forward, his heart pounding. He knew that he couldn't let this moment pass without finally revealing who he was. Taking a deep breath, he removed his worn beanie and scarf, standing before the crowd as Ethan Montgomery, the man behind the competition. A murmur of confusion spread through the room, and he could see the shift in people's faces as they recognized him. But it was Lily's reaction that held him captive. She looked at him, her face a mix of shock and hurt, the warmth in her eyes replaced by a guarded disbelief. "Lily," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for things to go this far without telling you. But I had to know. I had to know if there were people in the world who could see beyond what I am. Beyond the money and the reputation." Lily's expression hardened, her gaze piercing as she took a step back. "So this was all a game to you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You lied to me. All this time, you pretended to be someone else?" Ethan reached out, desperate to explain, but she pulled away, the hurt in her eyes cutting him to his core. "No, it wasn't a game. I wanted to find someone real, someone who could see past the wealth and the name. And I found that in you, Lily. You showed me kindness, compassion, things I hadn't experienced in a long time." She shook her head, her expression one of betrayal. "You could have told me the truth," she said, her voice breaking. "Instead, you used me as part of some twisted experiment. I thought you were someone I could trust, someone who understood, but it was all an act." The room felt suddenly smaller, the weight of their exchange pressing down on him. He could feel the stares of the crowd, the whispers spreading, but none of it mattered. The only thing that mattered was the look in Lily's eyes, the look of someone whose trust had been shattered. "Lily, please," he pleaded, his voice raw. "I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But my feelings for you are real. Everything we shared, every conversation, every moment, that was all real. I never meant to deceive you." She held his gaze for a moment, the silence between them heavy and painful. "I don't know if I can believe that," she whispered. "You showed me kindness, yes, but now I don't know who you really are." Without another word, Lily turned and walked away, leaving Ethan standing alone amid the murmurs and whispers of the crowd. He felt the sting of regret, the bitter realization that he had destroyed something beautiful with his deception. As she disappeared from sight, Ethan knew that he had to respect her choice, even if it meant losing her. He had embarked on this journey to find truth, but in doing so, he had betrayed the very person who had shown him what real kindness was. He was left with the silence of a decision that could never be undone, hoping that, in time, she might understand the depth of his regret. In the days following the competition, Ethan felt the weight of his choices settle heavily on him. Every memory of Lily's hurt expression haunted him, her eyes filled with disappointment and betrayal. He knew he had wronged her, that his plan to disguise himself had backfired in the worst possible way. What he had envisioned as a search for sincerity had turned into a betrayal of trust, and he could barely stand the thought of the pain he had caused. Ethan tried to immerse himself in his work, burying himself in meetings and projects that might distract him. But no amount of business could erase the feeling of emptiness that had taken hold of him. He had come so close to finding something real, something his mother had always encouraged him to seek. And he had thrown it all away by choosing deception over honesty. One evening, he found himself in his office, staring at the photo of his mother that had inspired this entire journey. Her warm smile seemed to mock him now, reminding him of the very values he had disregarded. She had always encouraged him to look for goodness in people, to seek out kindness and integrity. But he had twisted that lesson, using it as an excuse to hide behind a mask instead of approaching Lily with openness. Feeling a surge of regret, he picked up the phone and dialed Marcus, his assistant. "I need to make an anonymous donation," he said, his voice firm. "To cover the medical expenses of a man named Walter Brown." Marcus was silent for a moment, clearly surprised. "You mean Lily's father?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Yes," Ethan replied, his jaw tight. "I know I can't undo what I did, but maybe this can help her in some way. Just make sure it's completely anonymous. I don't want her to feel any obligation." He knew this gesture wouldn't erase the hurt he'd caused, but it was something, an attempt to honor the kindness Lily had shown him. Her father had raised her with values that shone through in every action, and Ethan felt it was the least he could do to support them now. He hoped that, in some small way, this gesture might bring her some peace. As he hung up, he felt a strange sense of relief, as though he had taken a step toward redemption, however small. But he also knew that the road to forgiveness, if it ever came, would require more than financial support. It would require a sincerity he hadn't shown before. In the following days, Ethan wrote several drafts of a letter to Lily, trying to put into words the depth of his regret. He knew that a simple apology would never suffice, but he hoped that, by sharing his genuine feelings, she might understand the complexity of his intentions. After many attempts, he finally wrote a letter that felt true, expressing both his remorse and his admiration for her strength. "Dear Lily, I know there's nothing I can say to take away the hurt I've caused, but I need you to understand that my actions were never meant to harm you. When I first conceived of this plan, I thought I was being clever, finding a way to see beyond appearances. But I see now that I was wrong, so very wrong. I allowed my own insecurities to cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I disrespected the very values I set out to honor. Meeting you changed me, Lily. You showed me what real kindness looks like, and you reminded me of the very qualities my mother taught me to seek. I didn't deserve the compassion you showed me, but you offered it freely, and I am endlessly grateful for that. I've made an anonymous donation to help with your father's treatment. I know it won't fix what I broke, but I hope it can at least bring some relief to you and your family. If there's any chance, no matter how small, that you can forgive me, I'll be waiting. Not as a millionaire or a man with a title, but as someone who has come to value honesty and love above all else. Sincerely, Ethan." After sealing the letter, Ethan felt a sliver of hope mixed with the ache of regret. He had no way of knowing if she would ever read it, much less forgive him, but he knew he had to try. For the first time, he was willing to let go of his need for control, to allow things to unfold as they would. With the letter sent and the donation made, he could only wait, hoping that his sincerity would reach her heart. He knew it would take time, perhaps longer than he could bear. But for the first time, he understood that true love wasn't about grand gestures or elaborate plans. It was about honesty, humility, and the willingness to face one's flaws. He didn't know if he would ever have a second chance with Lily, but he was determined to become the kind of man his mother would have been proud of, a man worthy of the love he had almost lost. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan continued his life as best as he could, though he felt a lingering emptiness where Lily's presence used to be. He kept hoping that his letter would reach her, that perhaps she would find it in her heart to understand the sincerity behind his actions. But as the days passed with no word, he began to accept the possibility that he might have lost her for good. One rainy afternoon, Ethan sat in his office, staring blankly at the cityscape outside his window. He was reflecting on how much his life had changed since he met Lily. Though their connection had been brief, she had left an indelible mark on him, challenging him to confront his own faults and become a better man. He realized now that this journey, one that had begun as a search for love, had been, more than anything, a lesson in humility and integrity. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. He looked up, surprised to see Marcus entering with a hesitant look. "Ethan, there's someone here to see you," Marcus said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I think you'll want to see her." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He hardly dared to believe it, but the look on Marcus's face gave him hope. Rising quickly from his seat, he followed Marcus to the waiting area, his pulse quickening with each step. And there she was. Lily stood by the large windows, her expression guarded but calm. She was dressed simply, her curls framing her face, and as she turned to face him, he saw a mixture of emotions in her eyes: hurt, hope, and a trace of something he couldn't quite decipher. "Lily," he breathed, feeling as though the ground had shifted beneath him. He took a cautious step forward, his voice soft. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." She held up a hand, stopping him before he could move any closer. "I got your letter," she said, her voice steady but laced with pain. "And I wanted to come here because I needed to hear it from you, face to face." Ethan nodded, understanding. He could see the turmoil in her eyes, the struggle to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the reality of who he was. Taking a deep breath, he began to speak, choosing his words carefully. "Lily, I know I hurt you," he said, his voice thick with regret. "And there's nothing I can say to make up for that. I let my own fears cloud my judgment, and in doing so, I betrayed your trust. You have every right to be angry with me." She looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "I just don't understand," she said quietly. "You had all the chances in the world to be honest with me. Why did you feel the need to hide behind a disguise?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair as he struggled to explain. "I thought that by hiding who I was, I could finally see people for who they truly were. I've spent so long surrounded by people who only see my wealth, my name. I wanted to find someone who could see past all of that, someone who could love me for who I am inside." Lily's expression softened slightly, but the pain remained. "And you thought you could find that by pretending to be someone you're not?" He nodded, ashamed. "It was a mistake. I see that now. But meeting you, it changed everything for me. I thought I was testing your character, but in the end, it was my own character that was being tested. And I failed." For a long moment, there was silence between them, a fragile pause filled with the weight of their shared emotions. Ethan felt his heart pounding, his hope fading as he waited for her response. He knew he couldn't ask for forgiveness, but he prayed she might understand. Finally, Lily spoke, her voice soft but firm. "You hurt me, Ethan. More than you know. I trusted you, and when I found out the truth, it felt like everything we shared was a lie." Ethan swallowed hard, his throat tight. "I know. And I can't take back what I did. But I promise you, Lily, my feelings for you were never a lie. You are the most incredible person I've ever met, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But if there's any chance, even the smallest chance, that we could start over, I would do anything to make it right." Lily looked at him, her eyes searching his face, as though trying to gauge the sincerity in his words. Slowly, she stepped closer, her expression softening. "You said in your letter that you wanted to be someone worthy of trust," she said quietly. "If we do this, Ethan, if we try again, I need to know that you're committed to honesty. No more games, no more tests. Just honesty." Ethan nodded, his heart swelling with hope. "I promise, Lily. No more games. Just the truth." She held his gaze for a moment longer, then, to his relief, she gave a small, tentative smile. "Then maybe we can give this a second chance." but I need time. Trust doesn't come back easily." "I understand," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." For the first time since their parting, Ethan felt a genuine sense of peace settle over him. They weren't entirely healed, and there was a long road ahead, but they had taken the first step towards something new, something built on trust, respect, and, above all, honesty. As they stood together, a sense of hope bloomed in Ethan's heart. He knew that he would spend every day proving himself worthy of her trust, of her kindness, and of the love she had shown him, even when he least deserved it. For the first time in his life, he understood the true meaning of love, honest, selfless, and unbreakable. Months passed, and with each passing day, Ethan and Lily rebuilt their relationship on a foundation of honesty, patience, and mutual respect. They took things slowly, carefully nurturing the trust they had begun to restore. True to his word, Ethan was open and transparent, showing her the man he truly was without the pretense or the games that had once clouded their relationship. Together, they began a new chapter, one grounded in the values that had drawn them to each other from the beginning. Ethan's dedication to honesty helped Lily feel safe, and gradually, her reservations faded, replaced by a renewed sense of connection and warmth. Ethan didn't stop at simply being honest with Lily, he also immersed himself in charity work, inspired by her compassion and his mother's legacy. He joined Lily in supporting her father, who was showing signs of improvement with the medical support Ethan had quietly arranged. This time, however, there was no disguise, no hidden agenda. Ethan was simply a man devoted to making a positive impact, whether or not anyone noticed. One sunny afternoon, Ethan and Lily found themselves walking through a local park, enjoying the simplicity of each other's company. Children played in the grass, families gathered for picnics, and laughter filled the air. It was a stark contrast to the glamorous, high-society world Ethan had once known, but he felt more at peace here than he ever had at any glitzy event. As they walked, Ethan reached for Lily's hand, holding it gently. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft. "For giving me a second chance. For believing that I could change." Lily looked up at him, her eyes warm and understanding. "I didn't just believe you could change," she replied, a smile tugging at her lips. "I saw the good in you, Ethan. Even when I was hurt, I knew there was a kindness in you that was real. You just had to find it for yourself." Her words touched him deeply, and he realized once more just how lucky he was to have her in his life. She had shown him the power of forgiveness, of seeing beyond flaws to the heart beneath. He had set out to find someone who could look past his wealth, but in the end, he had found someone who saw the best in him despite his mistakes. They continued walking, the silence between them comfortable and familiar. After a while, Ethan stopped, turning to face her. "Lily," he began, his voice filled with sincerity, "I don't know what the future holds for us, but I want you to know that wherever it leads, I'm here. Not as Ethan Montgomery the millionaire, but as a man who loves you for everything that you are." Lily squeezed his hand, her smile radiant. "That's all I've ever wanted, Ethan. Just you." As they shared a quiet, meaningful embrace, Ethan felt a peace he had never known before. He understood now that love wasn't about grand gestures or elaborate tests, it was about simple moments like these, about showing up for each other with openness and vulnerability. In the months and years that followed, Ethan and Lily grew together, building a life rooted in love, compassion, and a shared commitment to giving back. They continued their charitable work, supporting causes that reflected their values and helping those who, like Ethan, had once been lost in a world of superficiality. Ethan never forgot the lesson he had learned, the lesson his mother had tried to teach him for so many years. True love wasn't about appearance, wealth, or status. It was about kindness, humility, and the courage to see someone for who they truly were. And in Lily, he had found someone who saw him completely, who loved him without conditions. Together, they built a life that honored that love, one filled with joy, purpose, and a bond that nothing could break. They were, at last, whole.